love bread. Just about anybody you talk to loves bread. The problem is, most bread that you buy in the store is full of preservatives, sugar, sodium, carbs, fats, all kinds of things that you don't want to put into your body on a regular basis. So, you're trying to lower carbs, you're trying to eat healthier. What do? Give up bread? Never. Today, I'm going to give you a recipe that's going to save your life. A recipe of low-carb, fluffy hamburger buns. Now these buns, they don't just have to be used for hamburgers. They can be used for dinner rolls. They can be used for sandwiches. Basically, anytime you want bread, you can bust this recipe out and use it. The wonderful thing about it is it's low-carb, it's diabetic-friendly, it's keto-friendly, and my favorite part is it's made without white flour and white sugar. So now that I got you in the mood for bread, let's get cooking. The first thing you need to do is get together all the tools and ingredients that you're going to need for the recipe. It's always important to get those together first before you get in that full force cooking mode. That way you don't get halfway through your recipe and find out that you don't have a tool that you need or that you don't have an ingredient that you need and then end up having to throw out your recipe because you don't have all the necessary items. So make sure you get it all together before you get in that full force cooking mode. For this particular recipe, you of course need baking sheets. Need at least 2 of them, preferably 13 by 9. If you don't have them that big, it's okay to use smaller. You'll just have to cook your buns in more batches. Just make sure that your baking sheets are big enough that the buns can expand on. And you'll also, of course, need your measuring spoons and measuring cups. That's a given. You can't just throw a bunch of ingredients in a bowl and expect it to work out. You got to measure them out. You also need a medium-sized mixing bowl and a wire whisk. Wire whisks tend to work better than silicone whisks when it comes to alternative flours. Alternative flours, especially almond flour that I use a lot of, tend to retain their moisture, and so they'll clump up in little tiny balls when they're packaged. So when you put them into your bowl and you want to whisk them up and you want to get those lumps out as much as you can, the wire whisk tends to break them up finer than a silicone whisk. A silicone whisk does fine, but if you have the choice between the two, the wire whisk does work better. You'll also need a standing mixer with a bowl attachment and a paddle attachment. If you don't have a standing mixer, you can use a hand electric mixer in a mixing bowl. It'll be just fine. But if you don't have an electric mixer of any kind, you can do this with a bowl and a wooden spoon, but it's going to take you longer. You're going to have to put more muscle in when it comes to mixing it, and most likely after you get done mixing all the dough, you'll have to do some extra kneading so that the dough can get the elasticity that it needs in order to rise properly. So it can be done without electric mixers, but to get the optimal results, you're going to need electric mixers. Also, one more tool, and this is completely optional, you don't have to have it, and this is a dough hook attachment for your standing mixer. Now, you can use just the paddle mixer and it's just fine. I've made this recipe with just paddle mixer and it does fine. But I have noticed that when I use the dough hook in the second half of the recipe, that my dough is more airy and more light, and so it results in a lighter, airier bun after it's cooked. It's not a drastic difference, but it's enough that I can tell that my buns are a little bit lighter when I use the dough hook. So again, if you just have the paddle hook, it'll work just fine. You'll still have beautiful, yummy, light, fluffy buns, but there is a little difference when you use the dough hook. So if you have that preference, use it. Those are the tools that you need. Now let's move on to the ingredients. For the ingredients, you'll need 1 cup warm water, 1 large egg, 3 tablespoons olive oil, 3 tablespoons honey, 1 cup almond flour, 1 cup garbanzo flour, 1 cup vital wheat gluten, 1 teaspoon sea salt, and 2 tablespoons dry instant yeast. Make sure it says instant yeast. There is a difference in the different type of yeast that are out there. Instant yeast, you do not have to proof before you use it. Other yeast, you have to proof it and then put it into your recipe in order for it to do its job. Instant yeast, you can put it right in with the dry ingredients and it rises faster. It doesn't work in all recipes, but in this particular recipe it works wonderful, and you don't have to wait 2 hours for your buns to rise. You only have to wait 20 minutes. So instant yeast is a key to quicker rising buns in this particular recipe. Also, you want to make sure that all of your ingredients is room temperature. The key to dough, especially with alternative flours, rising properly is the temperature of your dough. If it's too hot, it'll kill the yeast. If it's too cold, the yeast never becomes active, never does its job. So you want to make sure all of your ingredients is room temperature. If you store any of them in the refrigerator, bring them out in enough time to come up to room temperature. The egg, a quick and easy way to make an egg come up to room temperature is just put it in a small bowl of hot water. Then while you're getting your tools and your ingredients together, it can be getting warm, and by the time you're ready to put it in the actual recipe, it should be up to room temperature by then. I do that all the time. So I can't stress enough that your items need to all be room temperature. You can completely ruin your recipe if your dough is not the proper temperature. So room temperature, room temperature, room temperature. These are the ingredients that you need. Now let's get on to the fun part and make our buns. The first thing you need to do is preheat your oven to 100 degrees. This is going to be where you put your buns for them to rise. When you are letting your bread rise, you need it to be in an area that is free of drafts, free of temperature going up and down or anything, and so that's why a 100-degree oven is pretty much perfect for it to be, and especially because you want it to rise at a steady, even temperature and time. So a 100-degree oven, then you want to line your baking sheets, and then take your medium mixing bowl and add all of your dry ingredients. Add your almond flour, your garbanzo flour, your vital wheat gluten, your salt, and your yeast, and mix it all together. Make sure you get all the lumps out. Remember, I told you alternative flours, they like to ball up in little clumps. Make sure you get all those clumps out. The small ones, I mean, it's almost impossible to get all of them, but at least get the big ones out. We don't want any huge clumps in there. So whisk them until all of the lumps are out. Next, you're going to get together all of your wet ingredients and put it into your standing mixer. So you've got your water, and you've got your olive oil, you've got your honey. A good way to get where your honey doesn't stick to all your measuring spoons is to just spray them really lightly with olive oil, and you should be able to just scoop them right out, no problem, no bunch of sticky mess or anything. Then you need your egg. Then you're just going to give this one more whisk just to fluff it. And put your dry ingredients in with your wet ingredients. Go slowly, otherwise you will have a big mess everywhere. I have went too fast before and made a mess. And we don't want that. We want to try to make as little mess as possible when we cook, right? Right. Then you are going to put this on low for 15 seconds. After you've done it on low for 15 seconds, this is where if you have the dough hook attachment, you want to change it out. So you're going to scrape all that off your paddle, and then you want to scrape down the sides of your bowl. Make sure that all of the dough is in the center. Switch out to your dough hook. And then you're going to put this on high for 3 minutes. It's important that you put it on high because this also kind of heats the dough a little bit. And remember, I told you that the dough temperature is really important when it comes to the whole rising process. So that this, putting it on high for 3 minutes, not only kneads it and fluffs it, but it also heats it just a tiny bit so that it rises better. So on high for 3 minutes. Once that's mixed for 3 minutes, we're going to take it out. Obviously, don't need it in that standing mixer anymore. Move our mixer out of the way. And then We're going to scoop it onto a lined baking sheet, and this will be making our buns. The way I do this is I take 1/4 of a cup, timer went off, take 1/4 of a cup and scoop it out. Doesn't have to be a complete level, 100% scoop, but just basically 1/4 of a cup. And then I put them on the baking sheet, 1/4 cup at a time. I usually do 4 on one sheet and 4 on other because when it's done cooking, you're going to have 4 tops and 4 bottoms. So you want to make them pretty much the same size. You don't want your top bigger than your bottom or your bottom bigger than your top. Once they're scooped out onto your baking pan, you're going to want to spray your hands just a little bit with oil, not a lot. And this is just because you're going to shape these into balls and you don't want the dough sticking to your hand. So just a little bit here. Rub your hands together. Take it and just roll it as much into a ball as you can. It does not have to be perfect, but you want it pretty close because you want it actually shaped like a bun and not like some UFO that landed on your baking sheet. So pretty much as much of a ball as you can. But as I said, it doesn't have to be precise, but as close as you can. Once they're shaped, you're going to cover them with plastic wrap. You're going to spray the plastic wrap a little bit because as the buns rise, if you don't have it sprayed, it will stick to the plastic wrap. So make sure you spray the plastic wrap just very, very lightly. Then you're going to put it in the oven and you're going to let it rise for 20 minutes. Once your buns have risen, remove them from the oven and preheat your oven to 400 degrees. While it's preheating, keep them covered. You can set them on your counter, on top of your stove, wherever you want to set them. Just keep them covered until your oven is completely preheated. Once it's preheated, you can uncover them and pop these baby in the oven and bake them for 10 minutes until the tops are turning lightly golden. You don't want to overcook them because they'll become crunchy around the edges and nobody really likes crunchy buns. Once your buns are done cooking, take them out of the oven, and they smell so delicious right now. But resist the urge of just ripping them off the baking sheet and eating them. Technically, when something first comes out of the oven, aside from it being very hot, obviously, it's technically still cooking for the first couple of minutes. So let it sit on the baking sheets for about 3 minutes, then put them onto a wire rack, can't say that word, a wire rack, and let them cool until you're ready to use them. If you're not going to use them within the same day of making them, then put them in airtight containers, Ziploc bags, put them in the freezer, and you can freeze them until you're ready to use them. When you're ready to actually use these buns, one thing you'll notice is when they first come out and you look at them, they've got a brown, flat, crusty bottom on the top bun and on the bottom bun. I personally don't like that. I don't like a crusty feel in the middle of my burger or my sandwich. So what I do is I just take a knife and I just very thinly just slice off that bottom brown piece. I do that for the top bun and I do it for the bottom bun. That way, instead of having a brown, crusty middle of my sandwich or burger or roll, whatever I'm using it for, it's nice and soft and natural looking, just like any other bun or burger would be. So when you put it together, there's no crusties in the middle. It's nice and soft. You can put whatever meats, cheese, veggies, whatever you want in there, and it will taste delicious. And that's our recipe for the day. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, remember to hit the like and subscribe button. Leave me a comment if you'd like. If you have a particular recipe you'd like to learn how to make without using white flour or white sugar, let me know in the comments below and I'll do my best to try to figure out how to prepare that for you. Keep an eye out. Once a week I will be posting new videos teaching you tips and tricks and new recipes on how to make your favorite delicious foods without white flour and white sugar. So until we see each other again, have a great day.